Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Political Power Ranker, where we track the movers, shakers, and rule makers of our country. Join me as always, is Emerson College polling director Spencer Kimball. Spence, I know you got a new poll we're going to talk about here, but the political landscape continues to evolve, shift. The foundation seems to be weakening for the establishment party. It's a very interesting time, and which makes your results today and moving forward much more interesting.
You got it, Chris. Today we get to look at Ohio, but as you mentioned, Texas was heating up this week with a primary battle. But Ohio is where we are today, and it used to be, as goes Ohio, so goes the nation. Not so much these days, but we do have some competitive races, it looks like.
We do. Let's look at your poll, the breakdown of how you created this poll this week in Ohio. Tell us about it.
So we collected this data over the weekend, finished up on Monday. We used texting as our primary method and some online panel to put together a sample of 850 people with a margin of error of about 3.5%.
All right, here we go. Your first results are kind of a shocker. You're going to make some news here, Spence. Tell us all about it and we need details here.
Well, this is an interesting race. So we're looking at the governor's race here. You have Democrat Amy Acton and Republican Vivek Ramaswamy. And we had Ramaswamy up by 10 points back in August. And we said, wow, this looks like an easy race for the Republicans. Now we're here in December and we have Acton up by a point. So this is a big switch in what we've been seeing. In particular, what we saw is the change of women voters. So male voters were breaking for Ramaswamy by about 20 points before, and they're continue to break to him by about 20 points. But the female voter was breaking to Ramaswamy by 2 points last time, and this time they're breaking over to Acton by 19 points, and that's where she's been able to make up ground.
That's a huge, huge shift. And you know what? Fortunately, we have two of the best political reporters in the state of Ohio who are able to join us. Colleen Marshall from WCMH in Columbus and Joe Toohey from WJW up in Cleveland. They are awesome, and I know they're going to have some insight. Colleen, let's go to you first. Do those numbers surprise you?
They surprised me how much of a swing there was. It does not surprise me that she's more favorable now with women voters. Her messaging going around the state, and keep in mind, she has been campaigning since last January. She has been out. She's going into rural communities. She's going into small towns once thought to be only Trump country. Whoever he endorses is going to win. And she's talking about the pocketbook issues that women are very concerned about right now. She's focusing on affordability. That is going to be the message of the party. It's certainly her message. She's trying to relate to women who are leading families. She's been doing things like meeting with farm wives, talking to them directly about what she can do to make life easier for them. And I'm not surprised to see a swing in female votes. I am surprised at how much it was in a pretty short amount of time. A 19-point swing, I think that's remarkable.
That's huge. And it's interesting that she's already out there in the grassroots, if you will, of Ohio, talking to the people who are in the farming communities and small towns. Very interesting. Let's go to Joe Toohey. And Joe, first your reaction, then I have a couple quick follow-ups for both of you.
Right. I was really surprised. You've been seeing glimmers of this. Other sort of survey type things have shown maybe a tightening race, and we've seen tightening races across the country. But to see this big of a swing towards Amy Acton was really surprising for me, given a few things, right? Conventional wisdom tells you, look, Ohio is a very red state lately. Vivek Ramaswamy has steamrolled the entire Republican Party on the way to this nomination. The Attorney General, he had a primary opponent. He dropped out once Vivek Ramaswamy got Donald Trump's endorsement and everyone else. So Vivek has really marched his way easily into this nomination without facing much opposition in the Republican Party. And you would think in Ruby Red, Ohio, that would mean things are going to look pretty good and pretty easy for Vivek. And our poll in August showed that. And that's why seeing these results was like, oh, we have a closer race now than we might have thought we were going to get.
Now, let's just talk a little bit about these candidates and then dig into some of the issues around them. First, Amy Acton, Dr. Amy Acton, former Department of Health lead for Ohio during COVID, had some controversy surrounding some of the decisions that she made there. And then moving over to Vivek Ramaswamy, Doge, started out with Doge with Elon Musk, presidential candidate. But he's got an edge to him. He's a very interesting campaigner. He's out there when you see him and in person, and he's willing to take on all comers. You saw that when he was running for president. So, Colleen, going to you, first, Ramaswamy, I remember asking you a year ago, I said, did you know he was from Ohio? And you said, not really.
Yeah, he's been, and the fact that he lives right here in central Ohio, he's been very low key. But I'll tell you a couple of things that I think could haunt him that are off-putting about him. They are hammering the fact that he's flying around the state in his private jet. They are hammering the fact that at one point Ramaswamy said that the problem with the workforce is they're lazy. And if people would just work harder, their lives would be better. And he put the economic problems on American workers. That doesn't fly well in Ohio. And just about 2 weeks ago, he made this video that he posted on social media in which he said, one of the solutions to the childcare crisis and how costly it is, let's make school year round and make students be in school until 4 p.m. because we are lagging behind in education anyway. Well, when that video went out, people were incensed, so incensed that people in the Republican Party started saying that was AI made by Amy Acton. That wasn't really Vivek Ramaswamy, when in fact it was Vivek Ramaswamy. So he's launching these idea balloons because he is a pretty progressive, or pretty far right person with different ideas. And I think that is off-putting. It is off-putting for mothers. That could also be one of the reasons the swing. It made a lot of people really angry. And then he and the party tried to distance themselves from it. But they'll be using that in campaign ads against him.
Right. And Joe, Amy Acton has her own baggage, if you will, that she's got to kind of put on the back burner in order to win this race. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Well, if you read any of Vivek Ramaswamy's press releases or Twitter X posts about Amy Acton, he's given her the nickname Dr. Lockdown, and that, of course, goes to her time being the state health director during the COVID pandemic under Republican Governor Mike DeWine. But all of the fire from Vivek towards Acton has really been about closing schools and making bad decisions in big government during the COVID pandemic. Amy Acton, for her part, says she's proud of what she did during the pandemic, saying she made the best decisions based on medical advice at the time. And her part, one of the things I asked her when I spoke to her about a month and a half ago or so, and I said, what do you think is something people underestimate about you? And she, without hesitation, said, people don't think I'm tough enough to run this race, which has kind of been one of the knocks against her. Vivek Ramaswamy, seasoned debater, goes on cable news, is used to jousting with protesters, and that's not really the format that you've seen Amy Acton in. And she has been really making an effort to show that she's tough, to show up at events across the country, or the state rather, state of Ohio, and trying to run this campaign in a grittier, on the ground way. And it shows, at least now, a year or so out, that work is paying off.
We could talk about this race probably for the full half hour here because it's so fascinating that the changing of events and the numbers over the course of 4 months. But we have another big race. And Spence, this is the Senate race. You've got John Husted and Sherrod Brown, who lost to Bernie Moreno in 24, and the current senator who is filling J.D. Vance's seat right now. Let's see those numbers because it's a different story.
Exactly, Chris. And as we saw, Ramaswamy giving up 4 points, Acton picking up 7 points. That flips a race on its head. This didn't change as dramatically. We can see Brown picked up 2 points, Husted dropped 1 point. So it went from a 6 point race to a 3 point race. And that's what's very interesting in this polling. We're looking at the governor's race where you see a big shift and a shakeup. Here, there doesn't seem to be a big shakeup. And then we get into those name recognition questions. That kind of explains where Husted is. But the bigger concern is where the Republicans are going to be with Mike DeWine when we start looking at his approval numbers as well. But in that Senate race, right now, it seems to be pretty steady as opposed to what we saw in the governor's race where the Democrat was able to make up a lot of ground.
You know, Colleen, I want to throw something at you with seeing those numbers. What we're seeing in our show as we poll across the country is the new, fresh face, maybe more progressive, but more energized, is really doing much better than the same old candidates that have popped up on that still are around. The Chuck Schumer recruited candidates. Does Sherrod Brown have that energy, that one last pizzazz to kind of carry him over the line here in this new environment for Democrats?
You know, that's the question, because Sherrod Brown is a prolific fundraiser, and he, during the last campaign, was able to go to, I think he told me, 21 states and get support and get money. Okay, he can bring in money. Can he bring in enthusiasm? Because what has plagued the Democrat Party in Ohio is this lack of turnout. In the areas where you would think someone like Sherrod Brown could drive people to the polls, in Cleveland, in Cuyahoga County, it's always been reliably a Democrat stronghold. They just could not turn out the voters. And that's the challenge that I spoke recently with Kathleen Clyde, the chairwoman of the Democratic Party in Ohio, and she concedes they've had a terrible turnout strategy. They can't get their party to the polls. And the question is someone like Sherrod Brown, who has been on the ballot for decades, who's well known, if you have an opinion about Sherrod Brown, you've already formed that 20 years ago. Is he the person who's going to inspire younger, newer Democrats to come to the poll? Maybe they think Amy Acton is that person because she will be, of course, at the top of the ticket. But that's the question. But he's a prolific fundraiser. He's a really good campaigner. He's an on the ground, get to know you, shake your hand, listen to your problem kind of a campaigner. So I think that they're hoping the two of them together, when they start campaigning together, which they will do, that will make a difference, maybe get people to come out and vote.
Joe, let's go over to you. Does John Husted, Senator Husted, have enough foundation built to kind of carry him through another election?
You know, I was surprised that these numbers were what they are. Husted is doing surprisingly well. Spencer may know better, whether that's, incumbency advantage or the benefits of being in a red state. Because here in Northeast Ohio, Husted is, despite being in office for as long as he has, he's relatively, I don't want to say an unknown, but under the radar here. He's not someone that's in news stories often or physically in Northeast Ohio a lot. I think I said this, I think on the last time we did this show, I think that's an opportunity for Brown, whereas Brown is a very defined, known quantity in Ohio. John Husted, despite being an incumbent, still remains a relatively unknown here. And this comes, right, I think just yesterday, the Husted campaign officially launched their campaign video, and you saw all these major Republican accounts, including Vivek Ramaswamy, up to the John Thune and everyone talking about how great a fighter for the Make America Great Again movement John Husted is. So I think just this week, they're starting to define themselves, and it'll be interesting to see how the Brown campaign takes advantage of that.
And can I add one thing to that? Because I think it's going to be interesting as they try to define themselves. You know, we talked earlier about Amy Acton being called Dr. Lockdown and them trying to tie all of these COVID issues to Amy Acton. Well, when Amy Acton was at the microphone talking about COVID and the protocols, right beside her was Lieutenant Governor John Husted. He was part of that effort. So if they start to say that she did all of this wrong, I can't imagine that the Democrats won't say, wait a minute, John Husted was there saying and advocating for the same exact thing. This was not a political thing. This was at the time a health crisis. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if that plays into their definition of John Husted.
Sounds like we could have a couple of great races in Ohio coming up here in the November elections in 26. We do have to take a quick break. It's time to pay the bills. We'll be right back with more from Political Power Ranker and more results from Ohio. Welcome back to Political Power Ranker, where we're talking Ohio politics. Brand new poll from Emerson College Polling and Spencer Kimball and his crew there. The next slide up we have is your favorable, unfavorable ranking within the state politicians. Let's look at it.
Well, Chris, as Joe and Colleen were pointing out, look at John Husted. He's got 38%, never heard of him. Look at where Sherrod Brown is. It's only 13% never heard of him. So Sherrod Brown's running in a race where people know who he is. They like him or dislike him. The incumbent senator is actually having the name recognition issue, and they're going to have to see who defines who in that race. And then when we look at the governor's race, Amy Acton, she's got the low name recognition there. Ramaswamy is 10, 15 points higher. So she's got room to define herself, or Ramaswamy will define her candidacy as well. So it's an interesting dynamic in these two races where the Republican in the Senate race has to define themselves, but the Democrat in the gubernatorial race has to define themselves. So a lot of defining going on in the early stages of this race.
Well, let me just ask one quick question about that. So she jumps 10 points in 4 months, yet she's not as well known as Ramaswamy. What does that tell you as a pollster?
That Ramaswamy lost support. So that he came in popular, but now as people are looking at him and they're saying, hey, maybe he's not as popular as I thought he was going to be. And his support is maybe softer than where Sherrod Brown would be because he's fairly newer to the conversation. But to see Ramaswamy's overall favorability being split tells me that he does have a split audience there that he's trying to win over. He's not as popular as, let's say, J.D. Vance. And so you will have some room to make up. But he's got 10 months to do so. And the Republicans have a strong state in Ohio, and I'm sure they'll try to circle the wagons.
And does J.D. Vance's numbers help both of those candidates on the Republican side?
I think to some degree, to have a top of the ticket, that means he can come out to do events and help drive people out to those events.
Right. Okay. Well, let's bring in our reporters and get reaction. Joe, let's start with you first this time. Just reaction to the favorability numbers and what they mean to you.
Well, the J.D. Vance numbers specifically now make a lot of sense because one thing that really jumped out to me, I mentioned John Husted officially, launched his campaign this week. They released the video of, walking in the factory and talking about fighting for you. But normally when a Republican candidate releases a video, and he worked with President Trump to deliver X. In John Husted's video, it was he worked with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance and made sure it had a picture of Vance alongside Trump. And that really jumped out at me because normally it's Donald Trump that's the draw, right? And you don't really tie Vance to that, even though he's the Vice President of the United States. But now seeing those Vance favorable numbers, and obviously Vance is from Ohio. He won a statewide election here not too long ago. That kind of clicked with me like, okay, so J.D. Vance may be helping, sell the sauce here as well.
Right. And Colleen, what jumped out at you? One thing that just kind of popped for those numbers?
Well, obviously the J.D. Vance numbers, but I continue to be surprised that there's anybody who, first of all, doesn't know Sherrod Brown as long as he's been around. Like, do you live under a rock? After 40 years in office, so that always surprises me. But the other thing that stuck out was just that Husted, He's in office. He's been in office for years. He was Secretary of State. He was the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Ohio. It's surprising that there's not more of either an appreciation or finding him unfavorable as long as he's been in the public eye. And a lot of people do see him as being kind of, he's low key. He doesn't come out like Vivek Ramaswamy with this dynamic, I own the room personality. So it's going to be interesting, not only how they define him, but how voters perceive him once he hits the campaign trail.
Exactly. All right, Spence, more numbers. We got to get a bunch of these in. Job performance, President Trump and Governor DeWine. What do these numbers tell you?
Well, they're telling me that Trump is down. He wins the state by 11 points and he's slightly underwater. Now, job approval always generally tracks under favorability. So we saw Vance have higher favorables than President Trump's approval, but it's kind of a wash there. What's most concerning if I'm the Republicans is Governor Mike DeWine, because you're looking to get another Republican term here, and he is really underwater. Now, the Republicans don't like him. He's got like a 35% approval amongst Republicans, but he's only at 16% amongst Democrats. So it looks like he has lost his base of support. And it would be interesting, Colleen or Joe, if you have any insights on how the governor's doing and where he might pivot as he's going to leave office in a year.
Go ahead,
Well,
Colleen.
I would say, when you look at Governor DeWine, it's not just a matter of voters finding him unfavorably. His own party has painted him that way. He has, I would venture to say, and I don't know what Joe thinks about this. I think Matt Huffman, who is the Speaker of the House right now, who was the Senate president, he's the most powerful Republican in the state of Ohio. It is not Mike DeWine. He has had conflicts with his party. They have called him a rhino. The leadership of the party have painted him in a negative light. And they do it online and they do it consistently. And here this guy is the governor of the state. He was lieutenant governor. He was a senator. He was a congressman. He was the attorney general. He's been in office 500 years. And he carried this state twice in 2 elections that he had a massive win. You would think this guy would be going into retirement at the top of his party, that he would be the face of the Republican Party, and that's just not the case. I think they distanced themselves from him, and it has affected his favorability with Ohio voters.
Joe?
I completely agree. I was blown away seeing these numbers, right? He won by 25 points we're talking about a governor's race right now that's tight. Republican Mike DeWine won by 25 points, I guess 3 years ago now. And I think part of it is, Mike DeWine type Republicans are just not the Republican Party anymore. He's not a Donald Trump Republican. They've had their, public disagreements. And I think that shows that, the party is moving away from a Mike DeWine Republican and towards a MAGA Republican, J.D. Vance.
And speaking of the issues that need to be dealt with, Spencer, you have a slide on what's important to Ohio voters right now, and it's not a shock.
Well, it's the same thing that was on their minds back in August, and that's the economy. So we go back to Mike DeWine. If he was able, it's hard for the governor to be able to solve some of the economic issues, but that seems to be, front and center for voters is pocketbook issues. And we'll see which one of these candidates have ideas, particularly at the gubernatorial level, of how they might stimulate the economy out there. And perhaps Joe or Colleen, you've heard some stuff on the campaign trail already, but the economy is going to be the big issue of the election.
And we're going to go to another slide right now, because this next slide shows what Ohio voters, what they think about who can fix it.
Well, that's exactly it. And this is a glimmer of hope for the Republicans. So we're sitting here saying, well, their numbers are down, especially when we compare them to where Trump was. But when we ask voters, who do you think is going to be able to solve the affordability? It is a +6 for the Republican, but you can see it's 19% undecided. So both parties are going to try to make the case that they're going to be better for the voters and better for the economy. But obviously time will tell where these numbers shift.
Joe, 30 seconds on the issues here. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, post elections, right? New Jersey governor, Virginia governor, and NYC, cost has become the name of the game. Everyone's talking about costs. Vivek, it's taxes. And as Colleen mentioned earlier, that's where he got in trouble, talking about bringing the cost of childcare down by extending the school year round, make it go till 4. So I think he's still finding his voice on that. But yes, cost is down. A little surprised by the immigration number, but yes, that all tracks for me.
Colleen, what about you? You got 30 seconds.
I think that because the races are as close as they are, that 19% undecided stuck out to me, because those are going to be the voters who help decide this. And both parties have to be directing their votes, their messaging to the undecideds, and in Ohio now to the independents, because that's what I think will decide this race.
Fascinating insight from both of you. We got to take a quick break. We come back. Spencer's up and down for the week. So don't miss it. Stick around. We got one last segment. All right, the most exciting segment of the week. Who's up and who's down per Spencer Kimball, Emerson College Polling. Spence, who's up?
When we take a look at that plasma screen, we see Amy Acton up this week. She's obviously been able to take a 10-point deficit, turn it into a 1-point lead. A very competitive race for governor. We put Acton up this week.
All right, shock me here. Who's down?
Well, with Acton up, the Republican opponent, Ramaswamy, is down, but he is not out. Ohio is a late-breaking Republican state. We'll be interested to follow this race over the next 10 months and see if they break back for Ramaswamy at the end, or if Acton can pull up the upset.
You know, Colleen, about 25 seconds here for you. I mean, Spencer's analysis is I'm spot on. You know, this is still a race, a big one, but it's still going to favor Republican in the governor's side.
In this state, given the Trump factor, which we can't ignore, he's not going to be at the top of the ballot this year, no. So I think that's why this is going to be one of those races that really is going to be up and down in the intervening months. It'll be interesting to see how Spencer polls these races in July or in September. You know, and it all depends on, I think, the Trump economy and how people perceive some of the ideas that are coming out of Vivek Ramaswamy and Amy Acton's camps, because as we've seen, some of those ideas can really move the needle.
Joe, some quick thoughts.
I just completely agree. Amy Acton has to be up. You know, there was a point where Tim Ryan, we didn't mention, was threatening to get in. They thought she was a weak candidate. She's proving a lot of people wrong with these numbers. It's a tighter race than expected.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you, Colleen. Spence, as always, great numbers. Everyone, just a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, go to NBC4i to watch Colleen Marshall's show, Sunday Briefing. Go to fox8.com to watch Joe's Battleground Ohio, brand new show on our digital platform up there. And if you're interested in catching Political Power Ranker on social media, you can go at Political Power Ranker and you'll find us. So thank you very much, you guys. Another great week, and we will see you next week on PPR.